Welcome into another episode of the Boys and Girls Show here on YouTube. Like I said, we have moved our show from podcast to YouTube. We had a little fun with it on our own last year, but you know what? We decided to get some more fancy bells and whistles, some graphics. We're now learning all about fan engagement, which it's being explained to me. Like I said, I always go to people that are smarter than me, so this is their lane. I need you to like and subscribe. I need you to tell us that you like us and you like this content. Of course, if you don't be disingenuous. Hit the unlike button. I'll be sad, but maybe tell us why. But here's the link for you, youtube.com/Cowboys TV. Bobby Belt, my NFL Network producer, and I have had this show together in the last 2 years, Bobs, because we have all of these discussions away from what we actually put on TV and thought, maybe other people might like to hear us talk about this too. I know every time I'm in a bar in Dallas or around my friend, they want to have these discussions. So I'm just going to start shooting them the link so I can enjoy some of my time off. One of the big discussions this week, of course, is that kid, the rookie, Micah Parsons, did a pretty good job, didn't he, against the Chargers, and did a good job, Bobster, finding out that he was going to get all of these new responsibilities on his plate midweek as a result of losing DeMarcus Lawrence on your left side of the defensive line. Earlier in the week, you found out you weren't going to have Randy Gregory on the right side of the line, so you had to make some quick changes. What did you think of the Rook's performance?
I think Micah Parsons, the great thing about him is he's so willing and eager to do anything. Not a criticism at all, but, we talked a little bit last episode about how Zach Martin didn't play right tackle, and we've heard that he didn't necessarily, want to go there. He'll do it, but he doesn't necessarily want to play out there. It's a little bit different with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons just wants to do whatever they're going to let him do. And, we saw that call on Hard Knocks that he had with Dan Quinn where he talked about, let me go back out there. Let me get some more. I'm just getting warmed up. I think he would love to be out there 100% of the snaps doing whatever it is they ask. I think he'd love to be on kick coverage, everything. He wants to be out there. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to take a couple carries on offense or something. He's a dynamic threat. I think you saw in the first week what he could do as a linebacker in coverage and against the run and his run fits and everything else. And then I think this week you saw the kind of talent he has to rush the passer and the kind of athlete that he is. And then, coming up this week, I'm sure we'll see something completely different because this is how they're going to use him. I think he is going to be a bit of a joker card in your deck. He can be whatever it is that you want him to do. And I think he stepped up big time. And I think they made a good call after he was getting stuffed a little bit by Rashawn Slater. I think they made a good call moving him over to Storm Norton's side where he could really be effective. And you saw it, 4 quarterback hits was incredibly impressive and had that big sack at the end of the game there on Justin Herbert.
I love the air quotes on that one. You mentioned Hard Knocks. There weren't a lot of characters that stood out for me. It was certainly one of them. One of those moments where he says, I'm always hungry. And they certainly put a lot of things on his plate for him to eat. I mean, when you think about it, he was on the field for 55% of the defensive snaps, 27 times in pass rush, 9 times in rush D, 3 times in coverage. Now, keep in mind, Brian Bulaga was not in at right tackle. That was a guy Terrell Basham told us last week that he wanted to see because he just remembered seeing a lot of him the last time that they played. But I thought the way that they used Micah was very interesting considering earlier in the week I'd reached out to DeMarcus Ware. And DeMarcus Ware, again, referencing Hard Knocks, had worked out with Micah Parsons in the offseason. And I said, shoot it straight with me. And this was off the record at the time. Is this a guy that can handle the pass rush? Could you put him in at defensive end? And his theory was use him very similar to the way that DeMarcus Ware was used. A 3-4 hybrid. You're asking him to be a disruptor, not necessarily getting to the quarterback on every play. You want it to be a disruptor, and that allows for more of these one-on-one matchups. Now, my boy Tom here, we record a show during the week. He brought up this notion of using Micah as a spy against the Eagles. Now, we'll preview that game here in a little bit. But I am curious, do we put something else on his plate? Essentially, for the folks at home that understand what a spy is in this defense, it's when they're mimicking the quarterback. I reached out to a lot of defensive coordinators that I consider, again, smarter than me. They liked exploring the idea, but as a lot of them pointed out, you do lose a guy in coverage. And not necessarily sure if that's the best idea for him. He certainly has the speed. He's your sideline-to-sideline guy. My suggestion is instead of committing him to a role, I know a lot of people have talked about, well, even when Randy Gregory comes back, do you commit him to defensive end? You make him your edge rusher. Why not always have opposing offenses worrying about where he's going to line up? Kind of like what you've got, again, referencing the Saints that I did in episode 1, another team that I cover. Taysom Hill's one of those guys. You have no clue where he is going to line up week to week, and it's a lot to put on his plate, but he does so admirably. Do you have this sort of option on defense now, Bob?
Yeah, I think that it'd be fine to use Parsons as a spy in certain scenarios with Jalen Hurts. I don't think it's anything that, you'd need him to be spying on him for the entire game. I think in just certain situations, certain down and distance situations, it could make some sense for the Cowboys to have him doing that. But overall, yeah, I wouldn't want to lose his playmaking ability as a pass rusher. I wouldn't want to lose his playmaking ability in coverage and against the run. There's just a lot there that he can do that I don't know that you want to just remove him from. But that can certainly be an effective thing. Now, if you're playing a guy like Lamar Jackson, who can rush for like 200 yards in a game and can abuse your defense, I think it does make more sense to have a guy like Micah Parsons spying Lamar Jackson in that instance. But Jalen Hurts, athletic as he is not the same sort of threat that Lamar Jackson is as a runner. And so I would feel a little more comfortable if he was doing some of the varied things we've seen him do the first couple of weeks, and spying can be part of that. But unless you're playing a guy like Lamar Jackson, I don't think it's necessary to have Micah Parsons spying for the entire game.
Now, in episode 1, I know you did bring up Jalen Smith because Jalen Smith has gotten a lot of flack on our show for his play in recent years. How much did Jalen Smith's play, stepping up, allow Micah Parsons to do his thing?
I mean, it definitely helped, because if Jalen Smith is a black hole out there on defense, there's probably a situation where they're going to have to, bump Parsons back in the middle of the game. But Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, both held down. Leighton especially had a couple of really big reads in the run game and really big tackles for loss. And so I think that it definitely helped. It gave them the flexibility. We'll see if they can count on that more every week instead of just in a standalone game there. But yeah, if Jalen Smith or Leighton Vander Esch is really struggling and, they're defending similar to like a Cleveland Browns game where they're just giving up, 300 yards rushing or whatever it may be, then yeah, you couldn't have ended out sacrificing Micah Parsons there on just on pass rush alone. And so it definitely helped, and it allowed him to do what he needed to do.
Golf clap to this defense, getting themselves ready midweek, performing the way they did against a very tricky, very tough offense with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. But now I ask you this question, since we're talking about giving some golf claps all around on defense, how many golf claps are we assigning to Micah Parsons? What is the percentage of a chance that Parsons wins Defensive Rookie of the Year? I'll ask you real quick, Bobby. What's the chance at this point?
I mean, I think he's going to be the best defensive rookie. Those things are always a little tricky, though, just because you never know if, a guy like Patrick Surtain, who had an interception this week, if Patrick Surtain gets 6 interceptions, that may look more like a gaudy statistical line, even if Parsons is playing better. But they're going to ask Micah to do a lot. He's going to get some sacks. He's going to force some fumbles. He's going to get a lot of tackles. And so he'll definitely be up there in the running. I think regardless of whether or not he wins the award, he's going to be the best defensive rookie in the NFL this year.
Didn't even play his final year at Penn. That's what's crazy to me. I honestly didn't want to believe it. But he keeps impressing me. And how about Charles Woodson putting out a tweet after that game? He said he woke up feeling like he was the best rusher in all of football. Talk about a lofty assignment from him. All right, let's get into home sweet home. The Cowboys have not exactly had the easiest schedule when you think about it. They started this year early with the Hall of Fame game, playing the Steelers. Then they were on the road. Then they came home for 2. Then they opened up the season on the road against the defending Super Bowl champs in the Tampa Bay Bucks. Then they have to go out to LA, face the Chargers. They finally come home. This one's on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. So let's get into it. After watching the Eagles in week 1, I thought, man, maybe I underestimated the Eagles and what their potential is this year. But then the 49ers went out there and sort of made them all look kind of average. What was your takeaway from Eagles 49ers at home?
I thought actually Philly played really well in the first half against San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco obviously kind of put it away in the second half. And they played much better than Philly did in the second half. Philly was not able to get much going on offense. They were moving the ball a lot more effectively in the first half. They just weren't, finishing drives off. So I'll be interested to see how much they'll be able to move the ball against Dallas. I do think their defense is going to pose some challenges. They've been, pretty stout against San Francisco and Atlanta, and I know nobody's, going gaga over Atlanta, but they've been pretty stout against, San Francisco and Atlanta these first 2 weeks, and Dallas still does have injuries on the offensive line. They have injuries at receiver. We don't know exactly how healthy Amari Cooper is. We know we don't have Michael Gallup. And so I think it'll be a more difficult challenge on for the Cowboys offense than the Chargers or the Buccaneers were.
Well, let's talk a little bit about just the sort of team that they're facing. I know you had already brought up, some of the injuries that the Eagles are dealing with. Let's throw those in real quick. We've got Brandon Brooks, who suffered a chest injury. Look, looks like he's going on injured reserve, pectoral muscle. That's big for the Cowboys.
Yeah, Brandon Brooks is a all-pro caliber type of offensive lineman and somebody that they rely on a lot. He's supposed to be back later in the season. So we would assume that they see him in the second half, but he's going to be out for this game, and that's definitely a big blow. And
they aren't done like the Cowboys. Let's switch it to the other side of the line. Defense, Brandon Graham. This one's tough. Season-ending Achilles tear for this guy.
Yeah, and they've still got some depth at pass rusher. So that's not as big a loss. He's a really good player, but it's not necessarily as big of a unit loss as I feel like DeMarcus Lawrence was for the Cowboys. But definitely will make things easier for the Cowboys. He is a difficult player. He's a guy who's had some success against the Cowboys in the past. And so being down Brandon Brooks and Brandon Graham, those are two big players for the Eagles to be missing. And then not just on the injury report, we were talking before this, Zach Ertz on the COVID list, landed on the COVID list. We'll see if he's going to be cleared to play. He had a full week from the time he landed on the list until this game is going to be played. But as we've seen here in Dallas the first 2 weeks, it can be a bit of a challenge even when you've got a week out.
All right, well, let's talk about players to watch heading up in this one. Of course, you want to keep an eye on your mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Now, he completed 12 of 23 passes for 190 yards, rushed for 82 yards and a touchdown. It is Jalen Hurts and how mobile he is that you've got to be careful with him, which is why a lot of people are bringing up using Micah Parsons as a spy, giving you your best chance of combating him. And then the other guy that I would keep an eye on, Miles Sanders had 13 carries for 55 yards, averaging 4.2 yards per carry. He's a guy I would keep an eye on heading into this one. We talk about the fact that you may not have Zach Ertz, so of course you've got Dallas Goedert. He only had just 2 catches for 24 yards last week. And then their receiving core, Devontae Smith is one that a lot of us have been talking about. Remember, that was a guy that was right there before the Cowboys picked. I don't think it would have made any sense if the Cowboys had gone and gotten yet another wide receiver after picking up CeeDee Lamb last year. But definitely someone that people have loaded up their fantasy lineups with, and a lot of high expectations for Devontae this year.
Yeah, and Dallas, you saw, They were giving up plays against the Chargers, but, it wasn't killing them. But those are bigger type of receivers, Keenan Allen, Jalen Guyton, Jared Cook at tight end, and Mike Williams. Those are just bigger receivers. And the Cowboys aren't necessarily as worried about deep downfield speed or quickness. You saw Antonio Brown and his quickness and his shiftiness and what he can do. That was a problem for them to cover. And so Devontae Smith as a quick guy who can stretch the field, that's definitely somebody that will be a challenge, I think, for their corners to cover.
Well, Trevon Diggs had an interception in every single one of the first 2 games. The last guy to do that, Leroy Jordan, back in 1975. Does he add on and get a third? Think of how he's affected the game. Really limiting Mike Evans in week 1, limiting Keenan Allen in week 2. Maybe he does the same with Devontae Smith. What are the keys for you in this game as you look ahead? I know it's early in the week.
Yeah, I would say that, and Trevon Diggs, I believe, I know 2 of them, but I think all 3 of his interceptions last year were against Philly. And so he's had some success against them. He definitely has taken the ball away in their matchups. And so I think a big part of it is going to be, don't let Jalen Hurts beat you. Jalen Hurts is a guy who is, has talent and has played well early this season. But he's not a guy you can afford to let, throw all over you. You shouldn't, you're not going up against Justin Herbert or Tom Brady this week. He's a guy who has a unique skill set that can give you problems, but you can't let him beat you. So I'd say that that's going to be a big key for them. And with this Eagles defense being stout, I think Dak Prescott needs to step up and play better than he did against the Chargers. And hopefully we start seeing a little bit more of the downfield passing game, and that they're able to stretch the field a little bit more against the Eagles.
Home crowd certainly helps, Bobby. Exciting that it's Monday Night Football. It's a divisional game. Both teams 1-1, and I'm sure we're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about. We appreciate you guys following us from the internet, from the podcast, over here to YouTube and with Chat Sports, as well as being a part of the Cowboys Report. Like I said, we need you as much as I hope that you feel like you need us when you are getting yourselves ready for these games. We've made it easier for you right here at the bottom, youtube.com/Cowboys TV. Bobby, I will see you at the Star in Frisco throughout the week. Thanks for joining me here, and we will see you next time, hopefully breaking down another Cowboys win.